this series of videos by Dr. Justyna A, Chevallier, which is I, is as a purpose to decrease overprescription of psychiatric drugs to persons resulting from ignorance, meaning lack of knowledge, to recognize and appropriately act on changes occurring during states of reciprocal romantic love, adulthood intimacy, and sexuality. The majority of recreational and psychotropic drugs is prescribed because of lack of awareness of circuits of pleasure in medical field by medical providers. It means that this topic is completely withdrawn from medicine, from psychology, from social sciences, and we recognize and label pleasure as sickness, mental sickness or sickness, and as an obstacle to normal, considered a sexual life. And then, as I mentioned in prior video, we provide children in similar to meat and milk industry manner to humans. And that is unnatural, unwanted, and lowering life quality and life satisfaction in modernized developing countries and in modern countries. Now this video, because those videos will be divided in different aspects of medical arts in which these drugs are inappropriate and are to be replaced by knowledge, education to providers, and empowerment of people who use these providers. So I will start with abuse and overprescription of psychotropic drugs and recreational drugs, especially nowadays cannabis, and also anxiolytics, antihypertensives, and also antidepressants, as well as others such as minor and major antipsychotics and drugs associated with pleasure circuits, adrenaline, and also serotonin and dopamine. Those drugs given to persons to compensate ignorance of reciprocity, of entering into sexual surrender or entering into sexual pursuit state that is impeding because of pleasure circuit with speech, with memory, with performance of activities such as presentations and also leading groups and performing activities that are non-essential. What is a non-essential activity? It's an activity that cessation of which does not cause demise or major catastrophe, or that if it does, there are persons to take over because of a place being overstuffed. And in those circumstances, because otherwise the fight or flight changes take over and impede, shut down circuits of pleasure, and there's no need for drugs, no need for memory also supplementations, or no need for these relaxants or antidepressants to present or perform activities. However, in situations where places are overstuffed or when there is nobody else and activity is important enough that for work, or be it a hobby, cessation of which will cause death or harm, then feeling of being in love that prevents from speech and also feeling of sexual arousal and pleasure that prevents also from a memorizing things and recollection, is not happening because activity is, from the standpoint of survival, relevant enough. In other circumstances, it is to understand that these drugs, prescription drugs, hormones that mimic pregnancy and other things, they are not administered proper when that person is not actually suffers from lack of knowledge, of awareness, of reciprocity, meaning same as a heater causes warming up, such is a role of two, one in function of the other, at ascending fashion, to generate state of being in love, pleasurable one, and sexual preparation in physiologic and mental changes in both persons in function of this occurring in the other, each. Okay, that is what the arousal is called, as opposed to all of the other persons that looking at it often, which is what sexuality has been reduced to, derive a notion that it is for them and from them. It is not. A person who sings a song, such as I love you, or I want you, or why did you reject me, has a recipient that enables that song, and changes of that body, such as moving or undressing or performing activities that seem for all, are always for every single person each, because there is a partner, one person who causes by own physiologic and mental preparation for sexual act that takes two in harmony of ascension to that is this source, because of causing delight to that person, of these changes in that person. Now, if that occurs and that person has to perform public speaking, take classes, pass exams, teach others, have food served to others, care for others, etc., that causes two things. In absence of that partner, it causes, because of inability in time, impossibility to serve the loved person's self and own family, laconic approach, which is called ahedonia, that is not anything else than a state of a person who is impeded by demands of workplace or social demands, by labeling and pathologizing that person possessing family from pursuit first of sexual union and children with preferred partner, and basic needs from that union, derived from that union, to self and that person, that are instinctive to provide as to a future spouse or future parent for my children. And that is why then activities such as, for instance, serving food to all others, providing medical attention to all others, caring for social needs of all others, and doing so also in function of being alert, such as education provided to all others, including as if strangers' own family in adults and friends, is secondary, and persons depending, if there is a life depending lack of work or education, we do so. If there is not, we are laconic, or we lack enthusiasm, or we are unable to be nice, and we also behave when we are employees as if persons were applying to replace spouse in sexual and intimate activities, which is source of work discrimination and impeding progress. And that has to be understood. Being so-called renowned or VIP needs to be derived from achievements, knowledge, and work, not from sexual appreciation of one person. Because behavior of such sorts that is highly emotional makes from workplace a brothel, not a workplace, and such are many universities, schools, and hospitals as well, and that is not acceptable for safety of all the others. And such is also sometimes work of police officers that are not trained and are impeded because of risk to safety of others from pursuit of own families each and having own children, and the persons that dispatch sends to are considered obstacles to own family and sexual life based on primal instinct rage, which results from not having chance to have own family and having these situations based on requirement of love and respect above spouses of others for authorities. Hatred is not alternative to that, nor is criticism. What alternative is a different type of esteem that is proper to a sexual, non-pathologic social functioning. When accomplished, it is the differentiation between a pursuit in absence of loved partners in reciprocity, life as a single person, or pursuit of own family, and persons none of the authorities, none of deities or priests, is to overtake, nor family own for adults or friends, overtake in intensity of love for ideal sexual partner in adulthood, which differentiates it from childhood, where parents are the most, or Jesus, or whoever it is that is still an ideal to aspire for. And so idealizing police officers, idealizing physicians, lawyers, etc., leads to then inability of those persons, when a reciprocity occurs, to sustain calm, and attending to cases occurs in function of rivaling on primal instinct for a role of a spouse, or in function of eliminating obstacles from sexual activity, which is brutal and is then mistaken by intentional, based on policy, racism, which will require petitions and regulations to exterminate or harm certain groups of persons. And that is not the case in the United States, at least.